What's your take on the national scene right now if you had to give me a group of teams that would be a favorite?
Well, first of all, I think it's a bigger group than usual. I think there are 6 teams, and I don't want to forget anybody or leave anybody out. I'm not sure that there'll be somebody come out of nowhere like BYU did last year, but Minnesota, USC, Washington, Penn State. Did I mention Minnesota?
Yeah.
Don't forget about Hawaii. I think they're there as well. And of course, Texas is always there, although Texas is a little bit different this year. You know, they have Chloe Collins, 5'7" setter, and Amy Neal, 5'10" outside hitter. So I'm not sure they're as physical as people always kind of presume that Texas is going to be. Dolly Santana, great on the left side for Minnesota. I think she's been a real key. And Penn State is really good. But they had some problems at the libero against Minnesota. And everybody knows that follows the game, if you don't receive serve at an elite level, and if you're in system, you know, there's an absolute rule. If you side out at a higher rate than your opponent, you win. Every time. 100%. So it still comes down to serve and receive. And speaking of that, one of the most consistent teams I've seen all season long, particularly in those areas, are the Washington Huskies. They receive serve at a very, very efficient rate. Their middle blockers, Leanna Sebelden, is superb, hitting at a super high percentage. I like the system that they run, a little bit of a slower. Karch and I did the match last week. We were calling it a slick. It's a slow quick. It's a little bit of an oxymoron. I don't know what they call it, but that's what we decided to call it. And then they're fast to the pins. Washington is always a very good serve, receive, blocking, serving and blocking team. But obviously Minnesota's got an opportunity. I think Florida's got some work to do. They're not smooth enough. They don't receive serve as well as they should to be really elite, and there are a lot of transition plays that they, quite frankly, I thought they were better in the beginning of the year. So if you were going to ask me to pick a Final Four, I'm not sure I could actually do it. I mean, I would if you put a gun to my head, but it doesn't look like you're armed.
Yeah. Well, no, a couple teams you didn't mention, maybe Nebraska in the right situation,
yeah.
UCLA.
But see, I'm waiting on Nebraska to see what happens at home when they play Penn State this week. I think they play Nebraska in Lincoln against Penn State to close out the Big Ten. That will tell me an awful lot, both about where Penn State is, and I think Penn State's a better team. I love Megan Courtney and Franti on the outside, of course Washington in the middle. Wise Kircher, freshman setter. I know she redshirted last year. She's been in the system for a while. They're replacing a really good libero. So, you know, last year Penn State with Micah Hancock and their senior libero, you know, they were really elite in almost every phase of the game. Right now, I think you can make a really good case for 6 teams, and you can also make a really good case as to why those 6 teams won't make it. So it's going to make for a very interesting march on into the national semifinals.